The following is brought to you by the PLD Projects Network. It's me. It's PLD. PLD. PJ Campbell. Two mediocre white dudes on film. Because frankly, we know you don't have enough of that in your life. So we're here to give you more. And without further ado, here are two mediocre white dudes on film.
And we're back. Not a dinosaur again. Story. We're back. As in two mediocre white dudes. We're talking all things Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers tonight. Which I'm very, very excited about. This is kind of a weird one because we're shooting it late.
We are. We're very late.
I just got back from a screening of Tourist Trap on the big screen at our little Mondo Monday thing here in Tucson, and
tell us about
I'm
that.
riding high. I'm riding high, both maybe figuratively and also maybe literally. I had an experience tonight. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I was seeing Tourist Trap. Well, it might have everything to do with that partially.
Tourist Trap is not a good film.
No. Tourist Trap is a really, really, really not good film that I adore greatly. And why it's relevant is it was produced by the guy who did Halloween.
Okay, right.
Who was trying to chase the success of Halloween.
Right.
And he wanted Carpenter to direct this movie. And Carpenter read the script and was like, no thanks. And walked away.
And this is from Carpenter, who was writing Halloween 2 at the time, which is not a great script in and of itself.
So in that, they let the writer-director become the director of the movie.
Oh, boy.
And, dude, I don't know, like... It is so fascinating because they made it's PG. Charles Band also helped produce this. Charles Band of, Doll Man, and of course, my favorite of all time, maybe, Puppet Master. Of bad horror cinema, I should say.
All right, let's just say let's get this out of the way. We talked about this in the beginning. Horror fans are a different breed.
Oh, yeah.
And we accept that bad movies can still be fun. more than any other genre in the world, bad movies in the horror genre are almost to be expected.
Not just expected, loved.
Encouraged.
Some of them are encouraged and beloved. Look, you're talking to two people who actually genuinely enjoy Jason X.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, exactly. We are the types who enjoy these things. So this whole little buffer preface is that we know that these horror movies a lot of the time are not good, and yet you can't get enough of watching them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so fun. And then you see it with a crowd who is as into it as you are, and now you're having even more fun. But for some reason, these redneck 60-year-olds who had clearly been fucking drinking before the movie came into our screening. None of us had seen them before. The Mondo Monday crowd is a real similar crowd all the time. You really see the usual suspects. There's a guy week in and week out. Actually, he was not there tonight, surprisingly enough. But this dude comes in week in and week out, and he sits in a specific chair every week in the corner. And as he's sitting down, he pulls a big ass beer out of his pocket, pops it open, and sits. We have seen it happen so many times. We just know this guy is at the movie. And that there's little pockets of groups like that in these screenings.
I love this story.
None of us have seen these people before. None of us. And before, the thing about these Mondo screenings is they're kind of rowdy screenings because you're all kind of interacting with the movie and making jokes. It's really Mystery Science Theater 3000 type stuff, but a live crowd.
Right.
We have a guy named Jeff who does all the programming. He comes out before the movie and he talks about the movie. It's the best. So anyway, we're sitting there and this group shows up right as Jeff is giving his introduction spiel.
Right.
which I'm giving to you right now as an introduction spiel. And we're sitting there, and these people are already being kind of rowdy and weird, and we were like, oh, fuck. But because none of us have seen them, and they're older, and they kind of look like biker gang types.
Okay.
And so now we're like, fuck, what if they don't know they're at a Mondo screening?
Oh.
So we're worried about the fact that we've already had people who have come to these screenings who don't know what they're in for, who like get mad at people for being loud.
Oh,
and
no.
like making jokes. And last week they actually had to come out and be like, if you don't know, this is what we do.
This is like,
cause physical altercations.
This is not your typical movie going crowd in a way. This is not what you're expecting. That. Right.
So we're all worried about it. Then the movie starts, and they're already like yelling at each other and like throwing popcorn at each other and just like being very weirdly. And we went, oh, they must know where they are. But now we're realizing these people are really drunk.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
And it does not get better as the movie goes on. At one point, one of the people gets up, walks down the stairs to go get popcorn. Then for some reason, when she's coming back, comes up all the way to the row that we're sitting in. And these people are like 3 rows behind us.
Right.
Walks all the way through our row to go around, goes back down to their row and sits.
Oh, boy.
One of these guys gets up to go to the bathroom and thinks he's going down the stairs and walks right up on our friend Tim. Because Tim is in the aisle seat. And dude goes, wait, is this not down? And Tim has to go, no, it's the other way. And send this dude back down the stairs. Dude, I have never in my life experienced anything like this.
Oh, my.
Dear rowdy moviegoers who are in their 60s, clearly drunk or something, while we applaud your efforts of joining us in our cult of Mondo Monday movies, I think I speak for the entire rest of our Mondo Monday crowd if we could just ask you to never, ever return to our Monday night cult shenanigans to bother everyone around you.
Wow, he's very impassioned, folks. PJ Campbell, how are you?
Oh, my God. I had to tell this story.
You did, of course.
I've never experienced anything like it.
I want to be there. I wish I had been there for you. I want to see you like in the heat of the moment. Like, you're heated now. Like I can imagine just watching your face as this all goes down.
To be honest, I was pretty chill.
Is this mid-movie or before movie?
No, this was during.
Okay, yeah, mid-movie. Okay.
Yeah, this was not like a...
Let's be honest, though. Luckily, you probably didn't miss a whole lot on the screen. Let's be honest.
I don't know what you're talking about. Because Tourist Trap is just like a one-of-a-kind cinematic experience. Guys, I can't tell you...
That is the nicest way you could ever put that, I think.
Yeah. Look, I'll say this. If you've never seen a Charles Band movie, a Charles Band movie makes a Roger Corman movie look like a Michael Bay movie.
Wow.
Charles Band might be the cheapest producer of all time.
That's a lot of levels down to go.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey, that's a lot of levels down.
And Roger Corman knows that he's making cheap movies, but they always find a way to do it.
Right.
Charles Band, every once in a while, Puppet Master 3 is my favorite because Puppet Master 3 is a movie that's set during Nazi-occupied Germany.
I thought The Littlest Reich was your favorite.
No. Hear me out. Charles Band didn't have anything to do with that movie.
That's right. That's true. You did tell me that. I have not seen that one. I'm talking about
the Charles Band specifically.
Okay.
Made movies. So this third Puppet Master movie, I can't believe I'm fucking talking about this out loud. That third Puppet Master movie is a prequel about Tolan and how he creates the demon puppets. But the thing is in the first two movies, the puppets are actually evil.
Oh my God.
But this movie decides to pivot, and it actually turns out that Tolan created these things because he wanted to help destroy the Nazi regime in Germany.
Do you hear the words that are coming out of your mouth?
Oh,
you hear these words coming out of your mouth?
This is real.
I know it is. Like, I've seen them. I've seen the Puppet Master movies.
I know. They pivot these puppets that are evil to being the heroes of this series. But because he's a cheap man and it's a period piece, you would think that this was like a terrible idea. But he was very wise and he rented the Universal backlot. And it gives it like actual production value because they use some of the old German like London sets. And suddenly I'm like, wait, there's actual quote unquote production value to this movie.
I don't think that those two words have ever been uttered in the same sentence as Charles Brand.
No, they haven't. And that's exactly why I had to tell this story.
PJ, let me ask you this question. Have you ever seen these movies while you weren't high?
The Puppet Masters?
Yeah.
Oh, all of them.
I'm very sorry for you.
Why?
I'm not really.
So fun. I know. That's why I was like, why would you ask me that? Because look,
they're better. They're best to watch in altered states. Let's put it that way.
Yes, correct. Look, Puppet Master is always to be watched in an altered state, if applicable to the person.
Correct. But
I can't say out loud that I say everyone should partake in the way that you and I sometimes partake in things.
Right. I get it.
Yours is more on the boozy end.
Mm-hmm. I am definitely booze sound. Not gonna lie.
No, exactly. But it's just kind of fun to enjoy these movies in that state of mind.
Yes.
However, sometimes you just have to watch it sober to go, oh my God, this is really actually happening.
Oh my God, I'm actually watching this.
Correct.
People are actually watching this. I'm not the only person who's ever watched this. I'm watching this with, they've actually made box sets from these things.
I have the Puppet Master one.
Oh, I know you do. This was a visual podcast. I know you'd be getting it out right now to show everybody. Because that's how
I absolutely would. I've thought about really pushing to do Puppet Master on here, and you know that, but I keep backing down because I want people to still listen to this podcast.
I gotta say, I've been right with you. Because like part of it, I said, let's go for it. But then I go, that's what, like, is it 10 episodes, 10 films, more than that? 11? 13. Jeez, I lost count. 13 films. That means that's 13 weeks of talking Puppet Master. I don't know if I think our listeners will be done by that. That's what I gotta feel.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Maybe what we should do, what we talked about with like our actors one, maybe we'll do the Puppet Masters over the long haul. Like every once in a while, we'll throw a Puppet Master movie in.
I love this. I love where your mind is at.
Eventually, we'll get there. Like maybe once every couple months, we'll get one in, and then eventually we'll have it done. But like it won't be 13 weeks straight where our listeners will want to kill themselves because they want to listen anymore about Puppet Master anymore.
I mean, who doesn't want to hear about Blade and Six Shooter and all these great puppets?
I think there's a lot of people out there who probably don't. I mean,
and I'm not kidding you guys. By the way, these puppets all have names and personalities, and it's like a real, actual whole thing.
It is. That's the problem, honestly. The funny thing is we do this show, and there's a lot of these kind of franchises that I would kind of love to do, but I kind of feel like we have to like at least we have to spread it out a little bit. We have to like Phantasm is another one. I'd love to do Phantasm. But a lot of weeks of Phantasm might be too.
Yeah, but there's only 5 of those.
That's why I think we can do that. That's why I think we do that. But there's a lot of franchises out there. I'd love to deep dive into these long, questionably quality type series.
I mean, I think about it all the time.
So
obviously, here we are talking about it. And the funny thing is like, of course, we want to talk about Halloween and everything too. But every once in a while, I'm like, what if we just pick like 6 Roger Corman movies and unleash that on the crowd here? And then I go, that just seems mean.
It just seems like we were really hating our audience at that point. And that, honestly, a little bit hating ourselves a little bit too.
I had Rachel Silvestrini visiting me at the beginning of the year. And literally the first movie we watched on New Year's Day, because she was down here from like just after Christmas through like the end of January. She was here for a while. Right. And we were just hanging out, and the very first movie of the new year we watched was Puppet Master. And then I was like, you know what? Let's go on this journey. Let's watch all the Puppet Master movies by the end of the week. I'll tell you what, I will never binge watch the Puppet Master series ever again.
But then when you're halfway through, you're like the 7th or 8th film, you're like, I gotta fucking finish it. I just gotta fucking finish them. Oh, God. A little bit short at that point, let's be honest.
They get a little better again towards the end because it does that thing where it starts a little low and it starts to pick up, then it bottoms out real quick, and then it like ebbs back up.
Right.
And then just kind of plateaus. So it's not like the most miserable watch, and everyone at home is going, you really watched? I did. I watched every single one of them.
And I remember hearing all about it. PJ was talking about nothing but Puppet Master for at least a week and a half. And I'm
when you
friend,
intake
so
that much, if you intake that much Puppet Master, there's nothing else you can talk about.
I mean, I listened gleefully. I'm not going to lie. I was always loving to hear you. But it was, I think it was the never-ending gifts I got that was a little much.
I did do that. I admit to that.
PJ goes through. PJ Campbell goes through these. You go through these very much these patterns or these cycles. It'll be that a lot of times. Right now, it's the Michael Myers stabbing the book gift that I've seen about 500 times for the past 2 weeks. Maybe because I pissed you off about something. That's fine. I get it. It was Belial for a little bit. Belial always comes back for a basket case.
Every once in a while, there's a How I Met Your Mother, like Jason Segel.
Yep. And that goes in there as well. That's true. I like it. I mean, I'm all here for it.
David Tennant and Matt Smith, Doctor Who gifts a lot. You know what it is? There's something I can't believe. Why are we having this conversation? I
don't even know.
I'm really glad we ended up here. I don't know. Sometimes when you're in you're binge watching something, you just start going back to the stuff you're watching and you're like, oh, there's probably a great gift for this situation. And then I always go to find that gift because it's fresh in my mind. So that cycle will continue until I move on to the next thing.
That's fair. And I totally get it. Although I do think the Doctor Who ones, the ones that we always go back to. And I feel like you and I especially go back to it. I feel like I have to apologize sometimes for audience because we'll had to do a whole Twitter thread of nothing but Doctor Who gifts back and forth. That's just how we're communicating.
People get involved.
People get involved. I'm saying I'm impressed that they do. But we will actually literally go through at least 10 or 12 gift conversations of finding Doctor Who gifts that fit the bill. Because you
can always respond. There's always a response to whatever someone has posted.
Yes.
And that's the funniest part to me.
I agree. And that, well, of course, we're excited about the upcoming anniversary. So that does definitely leans into it because I'm doing my Doctor Who watch. So,
I've been watching through a little bit too, but I'm kind of just jumping around. I've been in a place of doing the wibbly wobbly and just kind of watching things.
I hadn't done a long watch through in a while. That's why I said I sat down and I started doing it. I'm watching on season 2, right before Doomsday. I just finished Fear Her, the Olympic one, the Olympic torch one with the drawing. I just finished that one. So I had the 2-part finale where we, spoilers, lose Rose from the series.
Yeah, I say this every time I rewatch season 2. I get more impressed with it as time goes on.
Me too.
I actually think it's a really great debut season for David, and I also think it's a very even series.
Yeah.
It's one of the more consistent, and it's actually such a great sophomore effort because season 1 is very bumpy because it's still finding its footing.
Right.
But this season feels very confident.
Yeah, because it's got season 1 did the legwork for it. It has the idea of, especially for the writing of Doctor Who and for the effects. Right. They kind of got the effects a little bit better. I mean, Doctor Who's always been kind of having cheesy effects.
It's kind of janky. It's that's part of its thing.
Part of the charm, to be honest with you, to be completely honest. But it kind of feels like it's a little more assured, a little more like they have stuff in the reserves they can bring back out of things. They have sets built and things like that. The TARDIS is like its own thing now and everything. But we got some good things like Corey. This is where we got Sarah Jane back in this season. Like it's like they finally feel like they're able to pull back from the previous Doctor Who's and really make it feel more connected. Get Cybermen, of course. It's a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff.
There's a lot of good stuff, and they really start to lean in on it very early on at the very end of the first episode with David Tennant, which is the Christmas Invasion episode.
Mm-hmm.
There's that bit where David's finally Ten is getting his clothes for the first time.
Yes.
After the fight. And one of the things, if you're looking around, the scarf is there. and there's some like very specific pieces of clothing where they started to be like, okay, we're going to start to pull back the curtain a little more, and we're going to lean in on classic Who, and they do, and it works really well.
By the way, really quickly, one thing I did, I recently watched that I really loved again. Some episodes I don't think about very much, and then when I see them again, I'm like, oh, I fucking love that episode, but I just forget about it. It was a 2-parter of the Impossible Planet and Satan Pit one.
Oh yes, very good,
so good,
so creepy.
It is like it's one of the better horror episodes of David Tennant's probably his entire run, but definitely at least in that season.
It's got to be up there because they didn't do a lot of horror episodes with Tennant. I mean, Blink obviously is the major one,
right?
I thought Matt had a couple more that were like horror adjacent types than David really.
Well, I always feel like Moffat leaned more into the horror aspect of Doctor Who anyway. But.
Well, because most of his stories were like, if you look at some of the creepiest ones throughout the Russell T Davies era, they were usually the ones written by Moffat. Like even back to season 1. Wow, we're just like really going in on Doctor Who right now.
Is this 2 mediocre white idiots in a box? I don't know.
Well, actually, this will lead to something I want to say before we move into the rest of our episode. But there's the 2-part episode, which is the London set one during World War II.
Right.
With the child that Are You My Mommy? And that's the introduction to Captain Jack. But like it's a 2-part episode that's basically a horror show. It's got real body horror happening. Like it's a really good episode, and Moffat wrote that one too. So
that's right. Just this once, everybody wins.
Yeah,
gotta love it.
So good points. So my little bit of news to go with that, and I haven't put it out there. I don't really know how to go about this, so I'm just going to say it on here. And anyone listening to the podcast, like you're kind of in for a cool scoop until I know exactly when this is going up. But Mark Ellis does a show over on Rotten Tomatoes called Versus, and they actually are doing an episode on David Tennant and Matt Smith. And Mark reached out to me and asked me if I would write the script for it. So I actually got to write the upcoming episode of Versus that has to do with Matt Smith and David Tennant.
And my little spoiler is that it's damn good. You did a damn good job of the script. So I was pretty impressed. I mean, you actually wrote it. I read it in Mark Ellis's voice. So it seems like it fit the guy properly pretty much, you know? So good work indeed.
Thanks, man. I'm excited. So I know that he's filming it soon, and he's been very, very complimentary towards the job that I did with it, as have you. So I really appreciate that. And I feel really, really honored that I got a chance to do something cool like that. And now I'm going to have writing on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's awesome.
That's wild.
That's a writing credit. That's awesome. Good for you, my friend. Good for you.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Oh, one more thing.
Okay.
Can we talk about what happened this weekend?
Which part?
Okay, come on now. Look, there was this big thing that happened over the weekend called Comic-Con.
I guess we could talk about it, yes.
There's one thing I really want to bring up.
Absolutely, do it. God.
We're getting 2 more Avengers movies within 6 months of each other.
Yeah.
Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, and Avengers Secret Wars in 2025.
That's fucking amazing. I did not expect that, especially 2 in 1 year. That's just insane. I feel sorry for the VFX houses that have to work on that. But beyond that, I mean, all I gotta say is Kevin Feige really, like, for all the people who are out there saying, "Oh, Phase 4 seems aimless," blah blah blah. They don't know what they're doing as far as anymore. Kevin Feige said, "Here, hold my beer. I'll tell you exactly what we're going for, and here it is." And I was like, he even came out and said Phase 4 was basically kind of like an aftermath and kind of like a reset. That's why there's a lot of like, kind of like, let's check in on everybody, let's introduce some people. That's why it felt like a little bit like, if it felt aimless, it's because it's the first steps towards something. He has the plan in mind. We're going to be okay. And he just laid it out there. And I got excited about almost all the titles they announced. And some of the ones that they didn't announce, some of the ones that they trademarked that haven't announced yet, that might be announced soon in D23. I won't, if you don't want spoilers, you probably don't want spoilers. I don't know if you want spoilers or not, but I will spoil one. So you can jump ahead real quick, like jump forward like 15, 20 seconds. We won't talk much about it. But okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. I think I'm getting a Hercules story. Yes! Okay. Good enough.
And he's back. All right,
I'm back.
We're out of the spoiler. I'm very happy that
Yes.
makes you happy.
It does.
But I gotta say, the Avengers thing, they literally jumped from the very first movie of Phase 6, which is going to be Fantastic Four,
right,
to the last two titles, which are the two Avengers movies.
Right.
And Phase 5 is ending with a team-up movie itself, but it is not an Avengers movie, and it's the Thunderbolts. So I'm freaking stoked across the board. I'm very excited, but the thing that has me most curious is that who is ever directing these two Avengers movies, it's going to have to be someone doing both because they're way too close together to have separate directors for it.
Yeah, it's got to be filmed back to back.
I'm going to be very curious who's coming in because they also said the Russo brothers are not directing it and are not involved, which I will thank my lucky stars coming off the Gray Man. I want them nowhere near another Marvel project. I do not believe they can be trusted.
Well, that's an interesting take. I mean, because they did do well with the Avengers before, so I mean, that's something you could take. And maybe that's something to do with the ingredients there of having them with Marvel with the team there. So maybe they could do it. But at the same time, I'm happy because I would like to see a different take on it. That's all. I just want to see somebody else.
I want that too, also. And so it'll basically go down now that these 6 Avengers movies altogether will have had separate directors for 2 movies each, which I think is also an interesting pattern. Yeah, so
I agree.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Was there anything else that?
Well, I will touch base on the Thunderbolts thing. I do say I did get involved. I did actually go semi-viral with a tweet on that about the Thunderbolts. But you have to say,
yes, you did. I was not going to bring that part up, but here we are.
Well, I'm going to say it because I think it should be said. I want to get it out there as far in the world. So if they are going to replace the late great William Hurt in the role of Thunderbolt Ross for that movie, I will unsurprisingly stump for Ed Harris. But I'm not the only one that thinks that. A lot of people actually agree with me on this one. This is not just a pie in the sky kind of thing. He does actually really fit the role and would do a good job. So, and you even admitted that as well.
I don't hate it. I really don't. I actually started to think about, though, I was like, Harrison Ford, put a mustache on that dude and like just have him as him, and you sell it like this real star power moment for Thunderbolts as they get Harrison Ford. But then he's just Red Hulk most of the movie and he doesn't have to do a lot of work, but I kind of don't hate the idea.
I don't hate the idea. I don't love Harrison Ford as a bad guy-ish. I mean, I've seen him do it a couple times, but like he doesn't sell it as well to me. I prefer him in the more good guy role.
Yeah, but I'll say like Thunderbolt Ross is kind of not a villain. Like he is, but he's not. He kind of toes the line, which is kind of the thing I love about Thunderbolts is it's kind of, they're not necessarily bad guys. Like it's not Suicide Squad level of only using villains. Like a lot of these characters kind of exist in a gray area. Like,
right. I get that.
You look at Natasha's sister.
Right.
She's not really a villain.
Right.
She's kind of a gray area spy, but she'll probably be a part of it. And you could say the same thing a little bit about Wyatt Russell's character.
Yeah.
So
I get some pushback on that, but I get it. I get what you're saying.
Well, no. He definitely is still more on the villain-esque side.
Right.
But
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. There's just something interesting there. Was there anything else that stood out for you in the Marvel?
Those were the big two. I mean, Thunderbolts is something I've been looking forward to for a while anyway, so I'm glad we finally got that announced. I guess we can touch base on the Black Panther trailer if you wanted to know. That affected almost all of my friends, and you included. Like, a lot of people are telling me how much they were emotional about it. I will admit, I'll be drawn and quartered here. I wasn't as emotional about it. I thought it was a good trailer, fine trailer. But I was out high on the original Black Panther movie. That was never one of my favorite MCU movies. Again, liked it. Had no problem with it. Didn't say it was like a bad movie, but like it didn't connect with me like it seemed to connect with like a lot of the rest of the world, which is fine. It is what it is. But it was a very competent trailer. I thought it did get me more excited about the product than I was. I guess it did succeed on some levels. I believe that the trailer did. I think the music did a lot of the heavy lifting for me. It was well chosen needle drops are really kind of like that was the part that tugged at me a little bit. So that
song choice that they had was so fucking perfect.
I'll agree there 100%.
And it was used in such a right way because it felt so kind of like downtrodden until it becomes hopeful and everything's going to be all right. Because they're really pushing this idea that they're like, look, this is for him. Like this is for Chadwick. And they're really pushing that, and it comes through in it. And I got very emotional watching the trailer. It made me cry.
I'm so happy. And I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I was really, really kind of blown away by it. And you know what's funny? It feels like the trailer for Avatar 2, and it made me realize how badly Avatar has like slipped out of my conscious that I don't feel anything watching it. Whereas this, it was so emotional, and I felt it, and I felt all of it. And then to like actually see Namor on the big, like it come to life, and that was so cool. Like it's not even a big focus on him, but he's there, and it just was very impactful for me because here we are, we're going to be 30 movies into this thing, and it's like I'm finally getting Namor on the big screen. Like it feels really wild, and it's in this movie about Black Panther, and it's this idea that we're in this Wakandan set world where they're at war, it looks like, and the idea that this is also a love letter, it really hit me. And I was just so into it. And, we're getting Riri Williams in this, who is going to be the lead in Ironheart. Mm-hmm. And to see her was really cool. And it's just a really beautiful trailer because Ryan Coogler, man, the dude knows how to make a movie.
That's for sure. I will definitively give you that. Absolutely.
So I'm having a hard time not being excited. And I can't wait to finally see this movie. And I thought it was really beautiful when they said that they didn't have a number one on the call sheet during the shoot other than Chadwick. Like Chadwick stayed the number one on the call sheet, and this whole thing is for him. And I really felt it. I really did.
I hope it's everything that everybody wants. I mean, I'm definitely going to be there opening night or the opening weekend or whatever, as I tend to do. And I hope it's everything that everybody wants, because I think that's what's great about Marvel. We should at least maybe just think about when we should touch base on. We only talked about Marvel and Comic-Con. Nothing else we really talked about. I mean, definitely made the big thing, but
I'll say this. I was trying not to soapbox too hard tonight, but I'll say this. To all the people really, really mad at WB for not bringing more for their DC slate, I don't know exactly what you were expecting because, let's be honest, right now, 2 of these movies have people that could be looked at as very controversial for very obvious reasons that I do not want to get into. They're not going to bring that stuff with them right now. Right. And I think I think that they came out to do the thing that they said they were going to do, which is they brought Black Adam and Shazam. They did exactly the thing they said they were going to do. They were never the people who said that Henry Cavill was going to come back as Superman on stage. They never promised anyone anything. All they said was they were doing 2 things, and they set out to do those 2 things, and both those things seem to go over pretty goddamn well. Yeah, and I'm included in that because I really, really love that trailer for Shazam.
I did too. I did highly enjoy that one. Black Adam's not something I'm very interested in, to be honest with you. I'm kind of a little bit on it myself anyway. I'll see it, but that was hard. Didn't do anything for me. But Shazam definitely did. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was really fun. I liked the first one, so I like this one, I think.
Yeah, I'm just very excited to see whatever we end up getting out of both of them. Like you, I'm not like real high on Black Adam. I think part of my problem is that this movie's been in production so long. I don't know how it lives up to any of the hype that they've built around it after almost 10 years in development.
Right.
Because The Rock has been attached since the beginning of trying to get this movie made. And I love him dearly and I hope it works. But you can't keep hyping this thing up for almost a decade and have it just be fine.
Fair enough.
You know what I'm saying?
Enough. Absolutely. What about, I'll throw there one more thing I will throw out there. If you have any interest in, do you know, I don't even know, I've never talked about it, so I doubt it. Do you have any interest in Walking Dead? I know they had the new Michonne and Rick series that they're doing.
Which was turned in from the trilogy of movies that they were supposed to be doing for Rick.
Right. And that's
what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched it in the beginning. I've heard it's gotten better, but I've never really gone back. I'll say this, of all the TV show stuff we heard, I was pretty blown away by that Lord of the Rings trailer. I gotta say,
that's what I was going to bring up. Yeah, that was very well done. That's one I was definitely going to bring up. That's because that was exciting. It gives a little bit of story, gives a little bit of sensing, and I thought it was very well done. Very production value looked great in it. I can't wait to see more about that.
Yeah, I really liked that. Everything from the Game of Thrones prequel actually looked pretty good. I'm really pulling for that one because I want Matt Smith to finally get another win. It'd be nice to see him be on something successful.
Right.
And I'm not saying The Crown isn't. I'm just saying Matt's had really bad track record for a little bit.
Agreed.
But I was pretty taken aback by some of the stuff coming out of the Star Trek panel in a good way. The stuff for Picard Season 3 sounds so promising and so exciting, and it makes me want to catch up on that show because I'm so behind.
I haven't watched an episode yet, but I want to watch it. I do want to watch it. So,
and Star Trek Strange New Worlds is going to cross over in a half animated, half live action hybrid with Lower Decks.
That's a weird choice, but I'm kind of here for it. So I'm just saying.
I fucking love it, and I want to watch it so badly. Please and thank you. I adore Lower Decks. I've told you about this. I started watching it on a whim and was so taken aback by how much I was enjoying it. And so I got really into it, surprisingly a lot. It really worked for me. And it made me go, man, maybe I should finally watch this other stuff because I'll be honest, I have been kind of falling off the Star Trek train. I haven't loved everything coming out of it.
I gotta be honest with you, like I'm gonna have
Paramount rather.
I'm gonna have to turn my geek card in a little bit. My Star Trek. I've always been a Star Wars guy. I've never watched. There's a lot of Star Trek I've never watched. I watched a lot of the original series. I finally watched through all of Next Generation, which I did like of quite a bit.
Next Gen's really good.
I've never watched Deep Space Nine. I watched bits and pieces of Voyager when it was on, but I haven't ever gone back to it. I watched all of the movies. Whenever the movie comes out, I'd be there. But I kind of lost track of the series. And it's why I've kind of hesitated. Like, should I watch Strange New World? Should I watch Picard? Shouldn't I at least go back and do Deep Space Nine first and get that? Because I know I've heard good things. So many good things about that.
I'll say this: DS9 is incredible. Sorry,
I might skip it for now and just to get caught up with what's current and then go back kind of thing. That might be something I decided to do because I really do want to watch Picard because I'm really heavy into the next gen cast and everything else. So that's obviously a big part of it. And I've heard such great things. That's the thing too. It's been such like bummer things. Like Discovery was always kind of like from what I've heard. There's a couple of shows that have been kind of like okay, but I've heard a lot of great things about Strange New Worlds.
Me too.
Overall,
it
so
makes me want to watch it.
That. Right, exactly.
So I think I might finally sit down and watch it similarly because number one, it's going to be crossing over with Lower Decks, which again, like just so excited, but also, I just can't wait. I'll say this too. We had a lot of friends who were at Comic-Con and it was really great to see the pictures and the posts and everyone having like the best time and seeing that Comic-Con could come back from COVID and be as successful and as memorable as it always is for people. Right. Like that's a really big deal in my mind. And I'm really happy to see that they all just went and had such a great time.
Me too. Okay.
It's that time now, baby.
It is that time. We are 37
I'm not going to do what happened last week. That's not happening again.
We are here to talk Halloween 4. The Return of Michael Myers.
We're getting in the way back machine, my friend, to 1988. Yes. 10 years later. And because about every 10 years they would go back and they were like, let's do another legacy sequel like 10 years later. Sort of,
Yeah, exactly. The title alone can tell you everything about what happened with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
This movie comes 6 years later.
And they say, right off the bat, they're like, we're going to put The Return of Michael Myers right in the goddamn title so everyone knows this is not a Season of the Witch. Which is, I mean, again, we watched Season of the Witch last week. We liked Season of the Witch. But it was just poor marketed. It threw everybody for a loop. It didn't lose money, but it was not very well received. It was not a hit. It was definitely a step back.
Far from it.
But the decision at then was like, okay, we have to do Michael Myers. The anthology thing is dead in the water. And as much as it's kind of weird, because as much as I think the anthology thing is a good idea, I think it's kind of cool. Definitely a lot you could do with it. I love me some Michael Myers, so I couldn't help loving this as well. This idea.
Yeah, and again, to what we were just talking about, obviously Halloween 3 takes it on the nose. Like, it gets really beat up by critics. It gets really beat up by the fans. It kind of goes out with a whimper.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole franchise is basically put on ice for 6 years. Carpenter finally gets rid of his involvement in it. Same thing with Deborah Hill.
Not quite, but not right at the beginning. Actually, the very beginning, they were involved a little bit.
I was going to get there. Damn you.
I jumped the gun. I'm sorry.
You jumped the gun. So in this 6 years of time,
right,
there is many, many versions of Halloween 4 that are kicked around, including one potentially produced by Carpenter and Deborah Hill again.
Mm-hmm.
And very quickly, things go south, and the two leave the project.
I will say, you know what? I'm going to pitch this right now anyway. I will say, if you want to know more about what was going to happen, we are actually doing a bonus show. It's a Patreon show. But this week, or this Sunday night, we are going to do it for free. We are going to just put it live on PLD Products YouTube channel. We are going to be doing our first episode. We don't actually know a title for it. It's just Two Mediocre White Dudes on Film, the Halloween sequels. Because we have a book that we read and called Taking Shape 2. And it is a phenomenal, it has the phenomenal history of so many different versions of sequels that were not produced, pitches that were done, scripts that are done. It talks about them, and we're going to talk about them. So we're going to get into deep depth about what could have been, and instead of what we got, which is what we're going to talk more about here. So if you want to know that, if you want to hear more about that, Sunday night, probably, I know we haven't had time yet, but knowing us, probably somewhere around the 10:30, 11 o'clock Eastern time, we'll be going live about that. And interesting enough, the one thing I'm on tease right now is that there was a draft done that included Jamie Lee Curtis coming back, which is interesting to me because Jamie Lee Curtis was very vocal as saying Halloween 2 was going to be her swan song of the slasher, of the horror film, or a Scream Queen career. But yet they didn't listen, or they didn't want to listen. They made a pitch where Laurie Strode was back. And not only that, funnily enough, it's kind of what Jamie Lee Curtis pitched herself for Halloween 2. But we'll get to that later on. But obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis does not come back, so they had to rearrange everything at this point. But go ahead, continue with your production stuff. Pete.
No. You're good, man. You're good. So, again, we're going to be covering this movie had a very long journey with many different attached writers and concepts over time. But quite a few of the concepts kind of overlap and are a part of this final version of Halloween 4 that we ended up with. So they finally get here 10 years later. Dwight H. Little, who has kind of gone on to do other things that you guys have probably seen or at least heard of, like Little Things, Broken Arrow, Free Willy 2, which always surprises me, Burger at 1600, and the Tekken movie in the 2010s. But
Rapid Fire, Brandon Lee, very underrated Brandon Lee movie.
Yeah, and Brandon Lee in Rapid Fire. Yeah, so Dwight H. Little's got a pretty decent track record for himself, but this is one of his earlier films. He comes in, and the intention is to pick up 10 years later, and we're going to pick up on another Halloween night. It's going to follow Michael, and we're really just not going to buck the original. We're just going to try to do kind of a 10 years later sequel, if you will, to the original stories of 1 and 2.
I passed this along for you. I bet before we went live or we started recording, I did mention this. It's kind of like really honestly an early version of what like The Force Awakens did. It's a Star Wars. It is a sequel that harkens back a lot of the original beats of the first film without being so much of a retread. There's not any new ground broken. There's definitely some new ground broken. It's definitely advanced 10 years. It's not a carbon copy. There's enough of that. It hits that right note of familiarity without being complete rehash.
It totally does. And yet, like, even when it is kind of rehashing, it works because guess what? Halloween has a formula. It's like everything else. And we kind of like that formula. So they finally put together a movie that they really push it as, look, he's coming back. Even like the tagline, which is so long, by the way, is like 10 years ago, he changed the face of Halloween. Tonight, he's back. Because they always love playing on the tonight of it all.
Yes.
Every time. And so in doing this, though, they realize we need to still have an anchor for the series. So they asked Donald Pleasance to return, who comes back once again as Sam Loomis and is now top billed front and center.
Yes.
Donald Pleasance.
If there was ever any idea that this was going to be anything else, this is now Donald Pleasance's series. This is Dr. Loomis. Dr. Loomis is just as important as Michael. It's actually good that they have him because it was always kind of billed as Laurie Strode versus Michael. And obviously that's what the big 2018 trilogy is. It's Laurie versus Michael. This is now Dr. Loomis versus Michael. And I got to say, this might be a hot take in some ways. I almost prefer the Loomis-Michael battle.
There's a part of me that does a little bit. Because
while the sister thing was pushed in Halloween 2 and it was taken away for the 2018, especially because there's not a sister thing in 2018, it feels like what's better, the doctor versus the random final girl, who's great character, or Michael and the doctor who treated him all these years and kind of probably knows best about what's inside of it, if anyone does. And of course, Donald Pleasance chewing scenery always makes me happy. So,
oh, absolutely. And I was going to say the best part about this movie is that in these next two movies, actually, is the more time we spend with Donald Pleasance, the crazier Loomis becomes.
Unhinged.
It's like an absolutely batshit crazy performance in every single movie. And that's my favorite part about it, is that he just goes totally fucking crazy.
He commits to it 110%, and like you're never going to get anything but the best from Pleasance. He is a lot of the actors of his stature or whatever could have mailed in a performance for this. He was all in. He drank a little whiskey. He probably drank a lot of whiskey. It feels like he was maybe a little inebriated on set, partially, potentially. That's what it feels like. He kind of just did his thing and kind of could smell the whiskey on him. But it just felt like that kind of role for him. You know what I mean?
Oh, it totally did. But I'm also totally fine with it because it ultimately works.
Oh yeah, because it works for everything. It's exactly it. Such a good idea. Interesting thing I want to throw it there with production here is that the very controversial, one of the most controversial things about Halloween series was that decision in Halloween 2 to make Laurie Strode his sister, Michael Myers' sister. Obviously, so controversial that it gets retconned out in 2018. But at this point, it's so looming over the film.
Right.
It's hard to move forward without it. I mean, once that became reality in Halloween 2, they had to address it in the sequels. And I think they do so in a good way. It ends up actually making for an interesting case because that's why we get Jamie Lloyd. Funny enough, Jamie Lloyd is the name of the character.
Played by newcomer.
Yes,
Danielle Harris.
Introducing Danielle Harris.
I was going to say when it pops up, introducing Danielle Harris, who I have had the biggest crush on since I was young from the first time I saw these movies.
I'd say real quick, this is actually the first, I think I might have said this before, this is the first Halloween I ever saw.
Right.
I saw on VHS. I too was like, I like this Danielle. She is a great actor for her. Like child actors are hit and miss a lot of time. Let's be honest. Like there's bad. There's the kind of it's a kid, it's passable. And then there's Danielle Harris, who does a really good job with the role she's given.
And just to be clear, I know that sounded so weird that it was like you guys have to remember the first time I saw this movie, I was like 10 and she was also while making this movie also like 10. So it's not as weird as it sounds. I promise. I realized how that sounded. And I was like,
we don't want to go there, PJ. We definitely don't want to go there.
That's why I'm trying to make sure that people are aware why.
I know what you're doing. It's fine. I didn't really think anything of it. She actually was born. She's only a little bit younger than I am. She's less than a year younger. She was born in 1977. So yeah, interesting. So yeah, and that's when I first saw her too. So it's funny. We both saw her at the same age, even though you saw it much later on than I did.
Yeah, much later on.
But yeah, so Danielle Harris I'll sing her praises throughout. She's so good, in fact, that she actually gets recast in the Rob Zombie versions later on as a different character. That's how much she's really good in these films. So I do think she's awesome. I kind of really hope we could see her in Halloween Ends. I'm sure you probably would have heard about it by now in a way. But I feel like it is a little bit of a missed opportunity for them not to have Danielle Harris in there. I still kind of
I would have liked
cameo.
I have this feeling that when this is over, they might try to do their own version of the next continuation from Halloween 4. I wouldn't be shocked to do like a legacy sequel that pretends 5 and 6 didn't happen, and you pick up with Jamie after the events of the 4th movie, but as an adult.
Interesting.
Because you could actually go the Psycho 2 route.
100%.
Spoiler alert for Psycho 2. Psycho 2 begins 22 years later, and Norman is being released from prison for what happened, and he's being like put back in society and having to learn how to live in society. And it's actually
really doesn't go very well.
Right. But it's a really great mystery film, actually.
It is.
And it's a really good slasher film. So there's a world, I think, where someone at Blumhouse goes, what if we get Danielle Harris back? Because Harris is still very much involved with the franchise. She goes to cons still all the time. She was in Zombies Halloween.
Mm-hmm. One of the highlights of Zombies Halloween, I would say.
Yeah, I agree, actually. So there's a world, I think, where we have not seen the end of Danielle Harris in the Halloween franchise.
I can hope so. I can only hope so. But we'll get to that more as we go through the actual film itself. We're still kind of talking the pre stuff. But what's interesting about that to me is that Mustafa definitely wanted to go back to Michael. He also wanted to go back to the beginnings. He wanted to go back to the roots. He even went so far as to want to like get rid of the gore factor that happened in kind of 2 and 3. He wanted to go back because Halloween is not a gory film. There's not a lot of blood. There's not a lot of splatters. It's not all about the kill, like which a lot of slasher movies have become. And then, I mean, Carpenter himself kind of said he like had to do that in Halloween 2 because of all the films that were popping up around him. That's what the horror fans were wanting. They were wanting the Friday the 13th horror and stuff like that. But interestingly enough, we decided want to go back to the beginning. However, other producers wouldn't let it go all the way back, and they had to pump up a few of the kills a little bit to make it more in line with the slashers of the 80s, which I was okay with. I don't know about you. I was okay with. I didn't mind a little bit of the bumping up of the gore back to like that kind of level. But it's just an interesting side piece for that, I think.
Oh, it totally is. And even going as far as they brought back Alan Howarth to do the score off of 2 and 3. So talk about taking it back. They couldn't get Carpenter, so they got the guy who did 2 and 3 at least to bring that over. And this really does feel like a back to basics Halloween film with a weird psychic twist. That's the best way to describe it. Absolutely. And the thing about the psychic twist of it all is this: it's actually kind of hinted at in Halloween 2 that there's some sort of connection between Michael and Laurie.
Right.
Beyond the sibling aspect, because there's those scenes in the movie with the blood and it's dripping, and it's kind of what wakes Laurie up, and she realizes Michael's there and he's been killing people. Like, right. There's kind of this idea that there was already a connection. So now the familial connection continues where Jamie is having those kind of premonitions or these psychic episodes, if you will. Yeah.
Well, let's face it. Supernatural Michael is definitely much more prevalent in 4. First one, he was not very supernatural. Second one, he was to a degree. I mean, obviously, he gets up from the 6 bullets. I mean, he did that at the end of Halloween 1. I get that. He got up from the bullets
and he was the boogeyman. That was the point, right? Like, that was the point.
That's fine. But then 2, you think about all the things he did. That he had the psychic connection, and if you're going to bring him back and 4, let's face it. I mean, he got like shot in both eyes. He was blown up in the hospital. Came out as a fiery, burnt up corpse, pretty much. But they're going to bring him back anyway. So he's got to have at least a little supernatural bit to him. And so it makes sense that they explore that a little bit. They don't go over the top.
Well, let's say. Well, okay. Let's just get. I'm just going to say it right off the top of the gate, or like right out the gate, rather, or right at the top, however you want to say it. It's kind of just overlooked what really happened. Like they say in passing, they're like, Loomis went out of his way to kill this dude. He had shot him 6 times. He blew him up, but he's still here. And you just go, all right. We just accept that it happened and we're moving on.
It's part of what we were talking about before about the horror movies in general. You have to have even a more ability to suspend your disbelief, because you don't really care how the monster comes back. As long as like they address it somehow, and like dressing it by only half addressing it is okay by me. Like just glossing over it, it's fine. It's fine. It's like, okay, moving on. But it lets you do sit back down. Like when we were talking about it here, and like you have a good time, I'm like saying, let's face it, come on. There's no way I came back from that one at this point. But who cares?
Right. But not just that. Not only could he have not come back from it, then the other thing is the impossibly stupid idea that 10 years to the date when this dude broke out the first time, they're like, fuck it. Put the dude in an ambulance again, and we're just going to drive him back towards Haddonfield.
On Halloween Eve again.
On Halloween Eve again. While
Why
it's
do they always
raining
move him
again.
Halloween?
Right. Why are you moving him again 10 years later on how? What are you doing? What are we doing?
What are we doing here? I don't know. But you know what? Let's go right into that. For this movie gets me right from the get. Right from the get. That opening sequence we have with the two nurses or doctors or whoever is going to come to move Michael is because of the federal law. They don't want to go into it too much. It's just federal law. He's going back to Smith's Grove. And I love the guard in the beginning, played by Raymond O'Connor, who you might better know him as Park Ranger Bob from 1996's The Rock. But he's also been in a lot of movies. He's one of like those guys. He's in a lot of movies. He was in Arthur 2. He was in Mr. Nanny. He was in Drowning Mona. He's in a lot of random movies, but he's also in like just TV shows everywhere. He's got a really, I don't want to say weird look, but it's definitely a unique look. Like his eyes are a little
definitely. If you've seen him, you've seen him.
Right. It's kind of in a way like not as distinguished, but kind of Clint Howard-esque in a way. He kind of has that kind of like weirdest look to him in a way.
Right.
But he's great. He's great at the job. This actually was a very Clint Howard-esque character. That's what I kind of saw. I kind of like felt it was very Clint Howard-esque. It comes in. They're going to see Michael Myers. You hear something like they're obviously in this asylum, and you're hearing screams, and the people are freaked out. And it's got the best line right away. I'm like loving it. I was like all in this movie, the line where he goes, "Jesus," and then Raymond O'Connor just stops and delivers it. Jesus ain't got nothing to do with this place. And it goes on. It's so cheesy, but so well delivered and so good. I'm like, right away, I'm all in on this movie.
They're definitely not trying to hide the cheese factor of what they're doing, and they're 100% just kind of leaning in on it.
Right.
And that's why it works ultimately, and why I think early on I'm very on board with this movie for that exact reason.
Right.
It knows that you're expecting to see Michael again. It's really not going to explain the why of it, and they don't really care because they know you don't care. Yeah, because they just want you to accept, hey, we brought Michael back because we know you liked Michael. Now let's move on with our lives. And I got to say, I commend them for doing it.
Yeah. I think it would have been a mistake to try to over-explain it. It would have been a very bad mistake to try to over-explain it.
Of course, now, later, they do try to.
Yeah, they do. That's true.
So, to the detriment, as your point is that eventually they do try to explain the supernatural of it all. But I was glad that in this movie they just don't. They just kind of let it be.
That's why it works so well, to be honest with you. But we'll get to those episodes later on. those entries into the franchise. But it's a well done right away. I do love the transfer. It's kind of funny how it's not funny, but I think I love the fact that they start talking about Jamie Lloyd as Laurie Soder's daughter, Michael's niece. And for the first time, you see him like clench his fist a little bit. Like it's like it wakes him up and you're like, oh shit, things are going down. What a great beginning that is. And then of course he attacks him. Doesn't have a mask on, but it's all wrapped in the gauze.
I love this opening because I actually really like how as the music kicks in, because this movie also doesn't have the jack-o'-lantern opening that was so prevalent in 1 and 2. This one starts with like long shots of the Haddonfield County and stuff like that. And so then when we get into it and the theme really starts, it's when they're rolling him into the ambulance.
Right.
And you realize once he's in the ambulance, oh God, it's about to happen all over again.
Right.
And of course it does. He's all bandaged up. It's a great look, actually. I really kind of dig it. But Michael goes beast mode within like 10 minutes of this movie opening, destroys the people in the ambulance, and is out on the run, just going straight for Jamie.
Oh, yeah. Right away. And of course, we are quickly get to see Dr. Loomis come in, just like before, yelling at him. Like, same thing. He's a little more mad this time, even. He's like, I told you. And of course, you get the big moment where the predecessor, who the guy is, again, the Dr. Hoffman, the administrator, who is the guy, I believe, if I'm right, it's the guy from Rocky IV. It's Drago's.
It is
Drago's trainer or whatever. Or whatever.
I called him Discount Harvey Keitel while I was watching it, because the first shot of him, he kind of looks like Harvey Keitel from far away. But if you bought a Harvey Keitel doll over at Walmart.
That's a good point. I never thought about that. I like that. That gets good. But I also is just one of those guys that kind of like, I love when you have those guys like, oh, I recognize him. But he's always does a solid job in whatever role he plays, that kind of thing. But I love that right away. But he gets the call. Well, there was an accident. Loomis is gone. He started walking away like, all right.
Yeah. And again, it happens to be that Loomis just happens to be in the room when the call happens. Like, everything about this movie is utterly convenient for the sake of the movie just moving forward.
Exactly. It's but it's a beautiful thing. I gotta be honest.
Also, gotta love that Loomis is all beat up and scarred. He's got his cane now. Michael, nothing happened to that dude.
Nothing at all. But Sam does get to our point before where he gets over playing. See, just in case you missed my burn face, I dealt with it. I got the burns too. I'm whatever. It's like, okay, fine. So we get. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so we get to this portion where Michael goes to a gas station, diner, hybrid thing.
Right.
And he needs a jumpsuit again because he's only wearing his orderly best. He's not wearing anything real nice. So a nod to stuff that happens actually in both H2O and later 2018. Michael attacks the gas station employee types or someone in a gas station or a rest stop because it's like poetry. It rhymes. They like to do this. And Michael attacks the guy to get his jumpsuit, which leads to the moment where Loomis finds him after finding the van outside, and he realizes where did he go? And they find the diner, and it leads to one of my favorite moments in the movie.
One of my favorite moments in the franchise, I will say, for me. So awesome.
So there's this long shot down where Loomis sees Michael from the first time, and he's far away, and he's under this bandage mask. And Loomis's first words to him are, Michael, why now? As if Michael had any chance to do this before in the preceding 10 years, because there's not a single time that we are aware of in the last 10 years that Michael was transferred.
That's a good point. That's a very, very good point.
So Loomis, this brilliant, brilliant doctor scientist man, is like, why are you choosing now? It couldn't have anything to do with the fact that he was being transferred again. Come on, you stupid, stupid idiot.
And yet,
I
am sold like hook, line, and sinker. Like it's an emotional moment, and it's because of Don Pleasance. He sells it. He comes to the rest of the truck stop, whatever. He sees the girl. He saw the mechanic dead. He comes in, sees the waitress dead, or whatever. Tries to make a phone call. Sees the phone smashed. Sees the other phone. It's cut. The line's cut. Whatever. It turns up. You see him turn. You see it, and it's just a great cinematography moment. Like it's that distant shot to see the shape. Like, and that's one of the most horrifying looks of the whole thing. Like, oh shit, there he is. And just I love how Donald Pleasance delivers the dialogue. As stupid as it is. I agree with you. It's just it's well delivered. And it's and then it's
he's so good.
God
but yeah, when he goes, he's like the best part about it though is it's cheesy at the beginning. The why now? Why wait? You waited 10 years, but it quickly changes. That's the thing. It goes from being beyond stupid to actually very tragic very quickly. Yes. Because in that quick exchange, he quickly turns to, don't go to Haddonfield. If you want another victim, take me. And he's begging Michael to leave Haddonfield alone, which leads to what you just said, that God damn you. And the way he He's so good. And again, these movies are inherently very silly, but when you got a guy like Pleasance who can actually really fucking act, suddenly these movies change. And it becomes serious, and you're really believing it. And no matter how stupid the dialogue really is, you can't help but buy into it. You can't help but be drawn in. I never once ever overthought that. Because now suddenly it's like, God damn, Loomis really believes what he's saying. And he's really pleading to keep people safe. And you're like, man, he really does give a shit. He really cares. Wow.
So good. So it really sets it up. Like if it was ever in doubt before, it just sets up that this movie is going to be, no matter you have Daniel Harris, you have a couple of great characters. Like all the characters are actually pretty well drawn out in this one. Like I think one of the reasons, again, like why this one is so successful is that like all the characters, Daniel Harris, Jamie Lloyd's great, Rachel, great final girl. I think it's an underrated final girl. She's never talked about as much. She is great. Lindsay, who is maybe or maybe not the same Lindsay Wallace that was babysat by Jamie Lee in the beginning. We don't know for sure. They never really kind of clarify that or not. Although Rachel was also babysat by Laurie Strode. So interesting enough. But they're all really well done. But this scene right there, that shot makes you know that at the end of the day, it's Dr. Loomis versus Michael, what we really want to say.
Yeah, man. And look, again, thanks to him really selling the role, it just really, really pops off. And you're like, man, everything about this is suddenly Shakespearean.
Yes, that's what it is. And that is why I will always pimp out for taking a eloquent, real, solid actor in these types of roles. That's why you get the Donald Pleasance, why you get the Christopher Lees, why you get the Peter Cushings of the day, why you get, like in these days for Westworld, like Anthony Hopkins, Red Harris, and you get people like that in these supporting roles that just sell you on it. It makes your film, it just gives a lot of gravitas to the film. It makes you really commit to that film because you really want to see it happen, and you really believe in this. You believe that they believe it, which is more important than you even believing it.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think that's why I've always had such a love for the Hammer horror stuff in particular. And look, even going back to the Universal monsters, right? You had guys like Bela Lugosi and these actors like Lon Chaney Jr., Boris Karloff. They really pulled into being like, you know what? We're going to make these monsters tragic. They really acted. Like you're really going against natural talent in a horror film that is elevating this material. Like, yeah, we give lots of horror movies a pass for being cheesy and bad and whatnot, but there are a lot of these movies where the people involved treat it like goddamn Shakespeare. Like I said, they treat it serious. Yeah. And it really makes the premise in the world feel bigger and you buy into it. So no matter how dumb it really is, you're just kind of like, yes, take me on this journey. I believe in this journey. And that's just kind of cool.
I completely 110% agree with you. It just sets up everything else. And that's, look at this film where I don't even know how long we are into it, but the film is just unveiling itself in a very crystal clear way, in a very good way, especially for a fourth entry in a franchise.
And also a movie that's less than 90 minutes. This movie's got like a rapid pace. It doesn't stop really to breathe. It doesn't really spend a lot of time with a lot of the characters. Like you have Jamie and her stepsister. And that's pretty much it as far as like major spending time with characters becomes. There is Sasha's character. Anyone who has ever seen Dazed and Confused knows Sasha Jensen. Yes. That's like what he's most famous for. He was in that film opposite Ben Affleck and all those guys. He's really, really great. He hangs out with McConaughey. Incredible performance in that movie. I really love him in Dazed and Confused. He plays Don. But Sasha's probably the only other character that we spend time with that we've never met. Like Pleasance is clearly the focus. Right. And then Jamie and her stepsister.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of other ones that are sprinkled throughout. Like Kelly Meeker, Kathleen Kenmont, who is like Brady's other girl. I want to get to that. And most importantly, the other character that's really new that we have anything to do with is the new sheriff in town, Sheriff Ben Meeker, played by Bo Starr. Which again is kind of weird. It's the idea that they decided that they didn't want to have. They didn't want. I don't know why. I don't know what the process was not to have Brackett come back.
It could have been for either the actor or maybe, again, it was more of a let's just cut as many ties as possible if we're already bringing back Loomis.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. But I think, honestly, that's one of the one. I can't even call it a mistake because it's not like Ben Meeker. Ben Meeker actually does a good job. Bo Starr does a great job with Ben Meeker. It's a good character. He's a solid character.
But, by the way, do you know Bo Starr very much? Because I grew up watching that show Due South.
That's right. He's 90s, in that, isn't he?
And he's in it. It was one of the things that I always knew him from because he was
That's
in
right.
it quite a bit.
That's
and
right.
so for me, I always think of that. He's a character actor. You've seen him in a ton of things, but like that's the one for me. Yeah, but that was the one for me. And of course, Joshua Tree, with Dolph Lundgren, a favorite of mine. He's in Cinderella Man. Like the dude he's in Fletch. He appears in a lot of stuff. Yeah, he's in Fletch.
He was in Summer School with Mark Harmon. He was in Goodfellas, Born on the 1st of July, Perfect Weapon, and Speed, of all things. I mean, he's in a bunch of things. He's the kind
of guy, again, if you see him, you know him almost right away. Oh, wow. I forgot he was in that Meg Ryan boxing movie, Against the Ropes.
Oh, yeah. He was, wasn't he? I forgot about that.
Uh-huh.
That's good stuff.
Damn.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
He does a good job. And I do like the fact they do with that character as well. They do a good job with Halloween a lot of times, more than a lot of other horror movies. They don't make the law enforcement completely inept. Like, it doesn't take long for him to be convinced. Like, at first he's like, but like, he's like, when he gets to the story, gets the thing, kind of gets like a couple minutes in, he's like, all right, you know what? Check it out. Check out a story. Give him calls. We'll go down and see what's going on. And he goes with it. And once it's even like close to being real, he's like, all right, he's all in. He's going to help.
Yeah. And it's so good. It's actually kind of nice because the more incompetent ones, and I won't even call them incompetent. There's like a good old boys posse in the movie that comes out of the woodwork at one point to help try to track down Michael. Haddonfield very quickly becomes very redneck in this movie. I don't know if you notice it.
I did.
But like there's something about where it's shot and the turn it takes where it really actually feels like it's in Illinois now, but it's more like a farm town.
Yeah.
And it's a weird change because it doesn't actually feel like the same Haddonfield.
No, I get what you're saying. That. It's interesting you brought that up there too. I was going to bring it up when we talked about it a little bit later on. Of course, this is actually obviously serves at least partially as inspiration for Halloween Kills. The town deciding to like take a stake in the matter and they're going to take care of things themselves. Now, Halloween Kills takes it into a much further extreme. But it's the same basic idea. You got a couple people, one of them who lost someone to Michael back in the day. They're like not going to let the police just like do their own thing anymore because the police failed last time. Police station gets shot to hell, or not shot to hell, but Michael Myers goes through the police station. So they're going to like, we're going to take care of ourselves, and tragedy unfolds. And it's kind of a random thing. Like they don't like get into it very much. That's actually one of the weirdest parts of the film. I know we're going to get there. We're jumping ahead here, but like they kill somebody. Like they find somebody in the bushes, they shoot at them. It ends up being like, oh, it's Al or whoever it is. And like, you idiot, you told me you saw Myers. And like, that's like pretty much the result of it. Like there's no outcome from that. Like the guy just ends up dying. I mean, it does serve its purpose as far as, first of all, it's commentary on society. It's also worse because when when Meeker hears that, he has to leave his house to go, I can't just let these drunks go around shooting people. I got to take care of this stuff and everything else. So it ended up having great effect. But it's overall, it's just very, after seeing Halloween Kills, I was like, this is why Halloween, when we talk about Halloween Kills, is us as defenders of Halloween Kills. Whereas Halloween 2018 was trying to be a legacy sequel for Halloween. Halloween Kills was definitely a love letter to some of the sequels in the franchise.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, they even give mask cameos to the, Shamrock company's masks throughout. Like, there's all sorts of stuff like that. Like, I can't wait to talk about Kills. I love that movie so much. The other thing we do need to talk about in this is that when Michael is going on his first attack, Jamie is having nightmares, and she's seeing this man in a white mask. As we learn, she's having nightmares about Michael because for some reason, the closer he gets, she starts seeing him in her dreams.
Yeah.
And it's a really actual great way to kind of build it. Like it feels very kind of trippy, and there's something clearly going on in her psyche. There's like this, it's this very much psychosis type of thing, but she's seeing Michael. Yeah. And she freaks out, and her parents come running out, and they find her in the closet, and she's scared to death because she saw Michael. He was in her room. He sat up. She walks past that great shot where she's walking past the dresser with the mirrors on it, and there's a flash of lightning, and Michael's not there. Then suddenly he's there.
Yep.
And it's just so well done. I don't love the mask in this movie, but I really love the use of the character of Michael in this movie.
I gotta be honest. I know the mask isn't well loved. This is actually one of my favorite masks. I don't know why I love it so much. Again, this might be nostalgia because the first one I saw. Yeah. That must be what it is. I love the very white aspect of it. I love how it compares to the darkness. So when it is shined on, it's like a bright white almost in a way. I love that entire sequence you mentioned, when he sits up and when you see him just flashing. It's so perfectly horror, so perfectly Michael Myers, something that they don't get right all the time.
The movements are really great, especially, it sounds so weird, but coming off Halloween 2, it's such an improvement of how Michael moves and how Michael feels as a character to me. It feels a little different, but it still feels like it harkens back to what we see in the first one.
Yes.
Which is why I like it. And I'm not saying the mask is like awful, mind you. This isn't one of the worst, most egregious uses of a mask in the movie. This one just kind of looks like Chubby Bunny Michael. That's my only thing. It looks, because I mean, ever since the first one, really, they've never gone back to the Captain Kirk mask. Like they've always tried to do something new and try to re-replicate it. It's like, maybe don't do that. Maybe that's okay. Like maybe.
Well, I kind of feel like all the Halloween making that I've seen, it's like they couldn't replicate it. They never were able to replicate it the right way. They tried to a couple of times, but it never really worked out the way they did the first time. It's almost like they didn't know what they were doing. True. Like they knew what they were doing, but when you're ranking that first film, you don't understand how much of a hit it's going to be, how much you're might have to replicate in the future. So you just kind of don't mark down what you did. You just got to do it. And that's cool. Then trying to recreate a chemistry. It's like I could put so much of this spray paint on or so much of this dirt, and it never quite made it. It was never the same again.
No, I would say the closest we've gotten is actually the newer films, because they were able to really beat it up, and we kind of just get behind this idea that it's an old mask now. Like the mask he finds is beat up and old, and that's how it should look. I mean, I'll say this. I don't love the zombie movies, but I think they at least get the mask kind of in a very specific way for those movies.
Right.
Especially the second one. I really like it in the second one.
Yeah, very good. I get that. So we get to know Jamie Lloyd, who's Laurie's daughter or whatever, and we get to meet Rachel, and she's having these dreams. We get to know Rachel very much as well, and I want to just talk Rachel. I think that she is, I gotta say, I'm going to preview a little bit. Now, I haven't rewatched Halloween 5 yet, but I am not a big fan of Halloween 5. And one of the main reasons, that's true, yeah. One of the reasons I'm not a big fan is the way it takes things from Halloween 4, like if that's set up in Halloween 4 and just really shits on them. It doesn't do much with them. Rachel's exactly that. I mean, again, spoiler. Some people might be watching this along for the first time, so I shouldn't say that. I won't say anything.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
What Rachel is, I love what they do with Rachel in this one. And she ends up being a great final girl. She's not perfect in any way. There's moments where she fucks up, like she pisses off Jamie about being a teenager. She's forced to babysit Jamie that night because her parents are going out and the babysitter canceled out when she has a big date planned. And she's like, you know what? Well, you're ruining my relationship. My relationship is ruined, so I have to stay home and watch my bratty kid sister in a way, who she does love, who she does really. They spend time. You obviously have a great relationship between them. But one of the things, she's a teenager. She's an actual teenager. She's not perfect, but she's so genuine. And I love that about her character.
I do too. And I actually really like Eli Cornell. I think she's very talented. And one of the things I really like about this movie is her relationship with Jamie ultimately, because one of the things that is really great about Halloween is the Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode character spends so much time running from Michael that we really don't see her spending as much time with the kids in the end. This one really feels like a little bit of a two-hander for the two of them, which I really like. There's a really interesting dynamic of her having to protect her. She's also trying to be a teenager. She wants to go out with her boyfriend. She wants to spend time with him, or at least this guy she wants to see. I don't know if they're even really dating, but she's trying to have a relationship, like she wants to be that person. And then her parents kind of saddle her with the kid, and Brady being a jackass is like, well, then I'm going to go see someone else tonight. And she doesn't know that, but clearly this other girl keeps flirting with him and stuff and is trying to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, Kelly, who is the sheriff's daughter, as we find out, is definitely the much more stereotypical, promiscuous slasher girl in the movie or whatever. So she's going to die, unfortunately. That's the way it tends to happen in these films. But she's actually not even that bad either. She's just, we've seen worse. Let's put it that way. As far as this goes, she's just not gonna. She doesn't care about anybody else's feelings. She just wants what she wants. She wants the boyfriend, that one boyfriend. Brady, Sasha is very desirable, I guess. But Sasha's character is actually kind of good too, in a way. He's not altogether horrible. I mean, he's not a good person. He's not he's a teenage boring horn dog.
I was gonna say he's a teenage boy, really. Right,
he's a horn dog. He doesn't do well. Of course, he leaves when he gets disappointed by Rachel not going out. He just hops on to the next thing, and that's a boy thing. It's not great, but when push comes to shove, he's right there defending her till the end and trying to help Rachel out and everything else. He's definitely got some goodness in him. So I like seeing that. I liked when he was, because I just feel like a lot of times they could have cheapened out or just made him stereotypical. And so because he was the bad guy who was going to cheat on the girl, that he would have just ran away or been a dick throughout and never, you know what I mean? Instead, they make him have a good death. They make him have a good heroic kind of death. For as little as it matters for him, as it turns out.
Look, you kind of get what you're getting in these movies, and this one is a little closer to a Friday the 13th movie than it is the earlier Halloween movies. Well, actually, only the first one, because I think Halloween 2, after our rewatch, as I said, I don't think any of the characters in that movie are really likable.
No, none of them were.
It was kind of nice to go back to a movie where I liked the characters a little more.
Yeah.
Even if we didn't get a lot out of them, and that includes Sasha's character. Yeah. Again, as I said, you kind of know what you're getting into, because as we went along, the Friday movies really just kind of made teenagers cannon fodder.
Right.
And Halloween 4 kind of falls into that camp of them going, well, we know ultimately you really don't care.
Right.
So we're not really going to put effort into it, but there's at least two characters you can really like and another that you can tolerate.
Right. And
it's just very interesting.
Also Lindsay, which is kind of funny considering that Lindsay, the Lindsay character appears in Halloween 5 as well.
Right.
But in a much bigger role, actually. Than she
Which is such a weird choice, by the way.
Again, that's part of why I didn't like Halloween 5. And nothing against the characters, nothing against the actress at all. It's just a weird thing. Although, you know what? It's not Lindsay. It's Tina, isn't it?
It is. But
it is
even
Tina.
still,
the characters felt like the same character.
It basically is. It feels like it's clearly written to be a very similar type of character.
Right. Exactly.
Halloween 5 is a mess. I can't wait to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah.
But what I like from here is the movie really doesn't spend time setting anything up other than Michael's coming to Haddonfield. that night, this date was supposed to happen. Now it can't. She's supposed to take her little sister out trick-or-treating.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to go home. There's not going to be anything else. They go to get ice cream.
Yeah.
And get the Halloween costume.
Yeah.
And this scene is so great because she has another psychic episode.
Yes.
Or maybe is it not a psychic episode?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing they leave it vague, and I'm here for it, because you could really argue it either way. I mean, the only way you could really argue that's real, is the fact that you do see his hand grab the mask. At one point, like almost like that's where he gets the Michael Myers mask. Although it could be a combination of like she's seeing, because he was in there earlier getting the mask, that she's seeing the past kind of thing. You could really argue either way.
You really could, but I love it for that. No,
yeah,
I wanted to say, to your point, that's what I really like, because you have to assume Michael is going back to this store to get the mask, right?
Right.
It's a Halloween store. But here's the thing. Why is Haddonfield actually openly selling Michael Myers masks?
That's a good question. That's a very, very good question. It's one of those questions that he always have to ask when it comes to Halloween, because he always gets the mask back somehow. And you're like, how? Really?
But especially here, after everything, it's like, but for real, don't worry about it. We're going to go ahead and sell these masks. It's no big deal.
Right.
Which leads to a really funny moment later in the movie, actually.
Yeah.
But, like, it's such a weird thing. It's like, of all the masks, you'd think that town would outlaw that mask.
You would think so at that point, don't you? But they don't.
But they don't. But Jamie goes in. She's getting her costume, and she's trying it on in the dressing room. And she has a psychic episode, and Michael's kind of there, or maybe he's not. And she breaks the mirror, and everyone's like, it's cool. Is she all right? It's cool. Don't worry about it. And they let her go.
Right. That's very fun. Actually, I do want to bring up real quick before that. We actually we skipped a little bit over the sequence which is a callback to the first film. No, don't worry about it. I just remembered it myself. When the kids are messing with her. They're really cruel. Like, they're really, like, I know kids are cruel, but this is like pretty much really cruel. Your uncle's a boogeyman. Well, when's your mother going to make her costume? Oh, you can't. She's dead.
It's so fucked.
It's like, oh my God. You kids, I want to smack the hell out of you little brats. Jamie's an orphan. Jamie's. I'm like, really? But,
I mean, look, kids are fucking cruel.
And yet.
They're mean. And
yet, when it comes to time trick or treating, you're like, all right, let's just do it. Like, what the hell is going on with these people? I don't know.
Again, look, there's just weird mechanics where you're like, I'm not actually even sure why we're showing this scene other than to make her feel more like an outcast than she already is.
Right.
And it just makes me feel bad, because all I want for Jamie is the best in the world. You're like, Please stop being mean to her. Like, clearly everything about this is wrong. Mm-hmm. I just feel bad for her the entire time, because she's the daughter of Laurie Strode, whose mom allegedly is dead, but actually may have just abandoned her.
Right. As we find out later on. That's unpacking a lot, because, like, where is it? Because that's something we'll talk to when it gets to H2O. H2O is basically 1-2 than H2O. But for a long time, it was like, especially in development, there's times where they kind of like vaguely made references to 4, 5, and 6 and stuff. And the time that they were witness protection kind of thing. And so it's.
But, like, then why would you only witness protection without your. I'm not going to get into it.
I know.
I'm not going to get into it.
She said, well, we will maybe later on, maybe actually in the sequel development. We talk about the development of H2O. But it's true. So we got Rachel and Jamie, Rachel and Jamie going out trick-or-treating. And a couple things happen that are worth talking about. First of all, Michael breaks into the house, into Jamie's house, because the parents are gone and they're their party. And what's with Halloween, by the way? Haddonfield. There's a lot of Halloween parties at Haddonfield. Every time of Halloween, the parents always go to some kind of party.
Well, and that's what's so. Yeah, you're right. There's all these fucking parties and stuff always going on, and I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about this in the other episode. There was definitely a version of Halloween 4 where Halloween had been like suppressed in Haddonfield.
Yes,
and in this Halloween 4, it's like no one gives a shit that Halloween is a thing where something tragic happened. There's no middle ground. Between the two versions of Haddonfield, where I'm like, I feel like people would be a little more on edge still 10 years later.
Hesitant, especially given the fact that you are the foster parents of the guy of Jamie Lloyd, who is Laurie Strode's daughter.
you got to think that if this town is going to be you think of all the people that they're about to take out of this institution and be like, we're transferring this dude. He's about to go past this town again. Be aware that Michael Myers, a famed serial killer who's killed people 10 years ago, like, again, it's Halloween logic. It's a horror movie logic. It's so dumb that I have to be like, I turn my brain off for it, but I do, because there's no world where they're not warning everyone in this town that they're about to transfer Michael.
Right.
There's no world.
So anyway, Michael breaks into the house and, of course, once again, engages in his dog killing fetish that he has. So kills the family dog again. I don't know if he eats him this time or not. I know. I don't know if he eats him this time like he did in the other ones, but definitely he's killed him. But he gets one of the cool sequences there. He goes to the things, he sees the picture of Laurie, and then sees the picture of himself, I believe. Although, how does she get the picture of himself, of Michael? That's what I want to know. Where is that from?
Again, PLD. This movie is not actually the most well thought out.
I mean, Jamie could, like, Laurie Strode never knew he was a sister until Halloween 2 and he's in the hospital. She certainly doesn't have any baby pictures or young pictures of Michael Myers. But yeah.
But also, why would they want one?
Yeah, that's true too. Would you gotta get rid of it at that point?
Why would you want a picture of Michael in your house, a famed serial killer in that town, who basically is only going to ever go down as the person who tried to kill your mom? Like, that is your uncle who tried to kill your mom. What? Why do you have this?
I don't know. I don't know. I never will. But either way, it's still a pretty fun sequence. I should say fun is the right word, but like when he does see Laurie, it's kind of like cool. You see, I always like, because Michael is pure evil. It's always the thing that's always talked about. He is the shape. He's the boogeyman. But I do like the fact that there is some Michael Myers, some of the human in him still, and occasionally those glimpses of humanity come out. So I've always kind of subscribed to the idea that that Michael is pure evil. There's evil inside of him. Like this big, pure evil essence in him, but that it suppressed all the humanity in him. But every once in a while, a quick flash comes out of his humanity. Not enough to stop him, but it always makes for a good emotional moment where, like, oh, this thing is going to turn Michael or something, or we see Michael. One of those times. And like earlier in the film, I kind of felt the standoff with Loomis was a smidge of that. Like, he just doesn't kill Loomis. He just goes away, leaves Loomis. But this particular is one of the things where he sees the pictures and everything else, and then goes on.
Well, and what's so funny too is that, to your point, I can't get over, he straight up leaves Loomis alive, and Loomis is a dude actively trying to murder you.
Right.
And you're just like, nah, it's cool. I'm leaving that dude.
Yeah. But let him burn.
Jamie, he's straight up just on like this weird murder rampage for this little girl.
Yeah. It's the family line thing. That's what they committed to, that family line thing. And it also gets in his way between him and his niece.
I'm gonna be honest with you. The more we're rewatching and talking about this, the more I dislike the family thing, which is a thing that I never felt before.
Oh, interesting. I never had as much trouble with it as other people do. I prefer it not to be the case. I think it was a little bit lazy, but it does give it a weird kind of focus again for what they did.
I don't disagree with you. I'm not like, God, I wish it didn't happen. But part of me is kind of like, I wish it didn't. And I said that in the Halloween 2 one too. I almost kind of wish it hadn't, because there is a sense of urgency that's a little bit gone from it now. Like, yes and no, I guess, because it's almost like the shark from Jaws looming over them, because he's only going for her.
Right.
Everything is about going for her, because for whatever reason, he's like, I must destroy my bloodline.
Right.
For whatever reason, Michael wants to do that. And maybe he's connected to her too. They kind of lean on it that way, but they never really say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's moments that you definitely see them connect. So there's definitely even more in the next film, to be honest with you.
Right. And then, of course, there's all of the stuff that happens with 6. But in this film in particular, they never like outright say that Michael has the same connection.
Right.
So it's just very heavily kind of like implied, though, too, that he's watching her and he's going to find her. And that's so weird to me.
It is. I guess in a way, I understand why they did it, why Carpenter did it.
I do, too.
Because the first film, again, lightning in a bottle, he's coming home. He sees Laurie. He gets, like, whatever. He gets fixated on her, and that's what happens in Halloween 1. He has to kill her because he gets fixated because she comes to the door of the old Myers house. And she looks a little like his sister or whatever, even without being familially connected in the first film. So when you're trying to make the second movie happen and Laurie goes to the hospital, if Michael's not going for her, then it becomes like how do you get the two characters together in a way that makes sense? So Michael had to have a target on her back. Again, you could say it's because he is fixated on her, but giving the sister angle makes it a little more, whether you like it or not, solidified. Okay. Oh, okay. He's going for it because that's his thing. Okay. He wants to kill his family for whatever reason. That's why it never bothered me. But especially for this one now, because all of a sudden he's going to come back to Haddonfield again. And like, we're just going to, without the bloodline angle to it, it just kind of like seems even more of a rehash of the first one. At least this has a focus to it to a degree.
Right.
So
I don't disagree with you on that either. Again, I'm saying all this, and I love this movie, but I'm also just kind of pulling apart some of the seams because there's kind of faulty logic, because ultimately, like, none of it really matters other than he just wants her, and we should just accept that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing else that really ultimately matters.
Right.
And that's good too, but it's just very funny.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we have the scenes. Obviously, Rachel and Jamie are trick-or-treating. And I kind of noted this when I watched it. It was kind of a believable way that they got separated, which doesn't happen very often. A lot of times he's like, they had to be separated by plot armor made them be separated for whatever reason. Jamie gets lost and Rachel has to go around town looking for her while Michael Myers is in town. But Rachel goes to Kelly's house, Meeker, the sheriff's house, sees her boyfriend there, and just kind of gets mad, storms off for a little bit. Jamie just goes off because she's a kid. And all of a sudden, they've lost each other. And it makes sense. I liked that. And I kind of noted that. You don't see that. That's a smart decision by the writer. And you don't see that very often in horror movies like that.
Well, because it felt like a real moment of what could have actually happened.
Right.
And that's what I liked about it. Because you're right. We don't see that sort of actual normal interaction. It's always usually a little kind of cheesier, if we're honest.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, Obi-Wan had something very recently like that. And we just kind of look at it the other way, and it is what it is.
Right. Agreed.
So it's kind of nice to actually see a more realized and right version of that sort of situation. Mm-hmm. And it creates the tension once she's like, oh God, I lost her.
Oh my God. Right. On Halloween night, I lost the sister of Laurie Strode and my sister. And it becomes even more intense because she sees Michael.
Yeah.
Rachel's by herself and sees Michael. And just like run away. And it is, again, smart character. Doesn't sit there and go, who are you? What's going on? She sees this strange, hulking man. She's alone. I'm gone. I'm just going to get away. No questions asked. I don't care who you are. I'm just going to get away. And where I'm like, that's great. Of course, he finds her right after. And then right after that, Loomis and Meeker find them, which is an interesting take. I didn't when I first saw that, I wouldn't expect that to happen because you don't usually have the sheriff and guy find the girls in the middle of the film. It's usually towards the end, they'd come save the day kind of thing. But it leads to this great moment. It's kind of a Ben Tramer moment, if you will. A callback to the Ben Tramer thing. You get the Halloween kids with the Michael Myers masks. And it's a great dialogue between Bo and Donald Pleasance, where they kind of look at it and Dr. Loomis is like, oh, is that him? Yes. And all of a sudden, like, Meeker sees the other one. He's like, doctor. And you see this like look of horror on Sam, like on Loomis's face. He's like, I don't know where to, I don't know where to, oh God. And he almost shoots him.
Dude. Yeah, that moment is so great because, again, that was the one I was alluding to earlier. It's almost funny that the town sells all these masks because for some reason they were like, wouldn't it be great to have a moment where a bunch of people dressed as Michael have this moment? And I'm like, and like spook them and scare them, and they don't know if it's the real Michael or not. It's a bunch of stupid fucking teenagers.
Again.
Who I almost wish that Loomis had shot them.
I almost wish that too, because what dumb fucks they are. Are you kidding me? What are you fucking doing?
And again, what a nod to Halloween 2.
Yep.
And
when Loomis almost shoots Ben Tramer and is stopped by Brackett. Of course, it doesn't matter because he gets ran by the police car.
And then, okay, I also need to point out, we didn't talk about this, and I skipped over it. When Michael escapes the gas station in a truck that he is driving, they go out of their way to create an explosion.
Yes, they do.
Then Michael kills a dude at a power plant, and they have an explosion. This movie goes out of its way to have random explosions because Halloween 2 had an explosion.
Yep, that's what
and they're
it is.
like, how do we do this? How do we make it bigger? All right, Michael's going to drive a truck over gasoline pumps, and there's going to be an explosion that almost kills Loomis again. What are we doing? Come on, guys. Like, I love this movie, but I made note of that in my head. I was like, there's at least 2 occasions of explosions for sake of explosions, just because.
Just because. It's very true. It's very true. I can't deny that. So anyway, the sheriff, after the Ben Tramer-ish scare, we get to see everybody go back to the sheriff's house. Because of course we realized earlier that the sheriff's station was ransacked and Michael went through there and killed everybody. So they all decided to barricade themselves in the sheriff's house. And the sheriff decides to call for help on his like CB radio station trying to get to the state police. And gets through, impressively enough. They don't believe him right away, but they do eventually send the troops in. Which is, again, smart thing to do. You don't ever see that happen. Like, at this point, they're on their own, but they get a timer where they might take some time to get there, but they are having the cavalry is on its way, which I like.
And again, what is the cavalry in this? Bunch of rednecks who have decided to be the good old boys at a bar who round up the posse,
right?
Going after Michael.
That's why they have to get the real cavalry coming with the police eventually. But all right,
I kind of do love this angle, this idea of a bunch of rednecks trying to hunt Michael Myers, but also a part of me is terrified by the idea of a bunch of rednecks with guns trying to hunt down Michael Myers, because I now think about those children in the town wearing the Michael Myers mask who are now literally fair game in America with rednecks with guns.
Yep, that's pretty much how it is. And it's kind of funny though also how they really like neuter themselves in a way, because what happens is after everything goes down, there's a TV broadcast where the sheriff has declared martial law or curfew, and we're all going to shut down. And of course, this Earl guy is like, I don't shut down. I don't shut down for any good reason. I'm going to call. There's no one answering. Well, we're going to go find this out, motherfuckers. And he goes, and they're all badasses. They're all doing a thing. I'm not going to, like that police. Earl gets to do the, Earl gets to do the Obi-Wan, the Owen Lars. Like the police handled him last time. It's the same basic thing as Obi-Wan. Guy, they go, let the police take care of Michael Myers like they did last time. All badass. And all of a sudden, at the very end, which we'll get to the whole school chase sequence, they come out and they're there. And like Rachel says, no, let the state police handle it. They're on their way. Sounds good to me. Let's go. It's like completely 180. Like out of nowhere. It's kind of like, yeah, all right, we're good. I mean, granted, they did kill somebody. Maybe that sobered him up a little bit. But it felt like such a weird, like, kind of like, all right, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll let the police handle it. Like you weren't that way like half an hour ago.
There's such interesting characters that exist within the confines of this universe. And it's funny because, again, talk about Halloween Kills. Halloween Kills goes back down the same route of the town deciding to hunt down Michael. Done very differently, but it's something that again, is kind of recycled or reimagined for a new generation and handled very interestingly in that film. So I love that this is kind of groundwork for something used later in another movie that is actually really good, in my opinion. And that's actually kind of how I feel about this whole movie in particular. A lot of the ideas in Halloween 4 and Halloween H2O, like, they really feel like the real launching pad for Halloween 2018 and Kills, and what I feel like Halloween Ends is going to end up being. Like, I know they keep saying that Halloween Ends is going to be so different, but I think that it's really not necessarily that it's going to be terribly different so much as it's really just taking everything they've done and finding a fitting conclusion.
Yep.
Because Halloween's never really had that fitting conclusion.
Right. I mean, H2O had a decent conclusion to the whole story, and then fucked it up.
Right. That's the problem, is that we had it until we didn't.
And then, well, of course, let's also be honest. That even if Ends completely sticks to landing, it's not going to be the last Halloween film.
Oh, no, of course not. But they're actually selling it as the end of their legacy, which I think means that, again, we could talk about the idea of them doing a legacy sequel to, say, 4.
Right. Absolutely.
That opens up those potentials. And so in thinking about that, then I go, oh, and I go down that rabbit hole of what if, because if they stick the landing with Ends, suddenly we have a very good ending to the entire Michael Laurie saga, if you will. Again.
Agreed. We'll see. But let's get to that thing. Actually, we'll get there right now because they're all barricaded in. The sheriff goes off in the town trying to find Earl and try to stop the whole thing happening. And Michael, of course, finds out where they are, goes and wreaks havoc on the house and does it quickly, very quickly. Kills the poor sheriff is standing guard duty. I love that. That's a back to the playful Michael. Because then when Kelly comes in with the coffee, oh, you need some coffee? I made you some coffee. And all of a sudden she turns and then also she sees the guy's head somewhere else. She's like, wait a minute, what the fuck? You turn, you see like Michael in the rocking chair with a gun. And then Michael just stands up like, oh, shit, here we go. And doesn't shoot her, of course. He used the gun to pin her up against the wall. Very reminiscent of Halloween 1 in a way, where they stab into the wall in that same similar fashion. Love how it works. But yeah.
Again, it's like poetry. It rhymes. And this whole sequence is really great. And we're already to the end of the movie, basically, which is so funny. Like, it's amazing how, again, this movie is very quick and very rapid.
It's going to be one of our shortest episodes, even though we actually love this film, which is funny.
Yeah. But they get out of the house. They climb down from the roof to get out away from Michael. The rednecks show up and kind of round them up.
Yep.
And protect them.
Well, they go to school for that school thing, which is
they go to the school thing.
It's funny where it's sad because Sam Loomis finds her. He's like, "Oh, I want to go home." No, that's the first place he'll look. Let's go to the schoolhouse. I don't know why.
Which is so weird because in Halloween 2, Michael went to the schoolhouse. Why would you go there?
That's a good point. That's a great point.
Again, Loomis, who I adore, is making absolutely batshit stupid decision making.
He isn't always the smartest. Let's be honest. He's a little passionate. He's a little, but funny enough, as they go to the schoolhouse, they have the whole thing. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool little sequence though, because they have Jamie getting scared, you get Loomis getting hit, and you get the chasing of Michael and Jamie, and then who shows up? Rachel shows up because Rachel was knocked out unconscious during the chase. She comes with the fire extinguisher. What a great call! What a great decision to make. She didn't have any else. She grabs something and got it out. Buys time for them to get out. Gets them out, and they find that's where they meet Earl. And Earl's like, "All right, we're going to take you to the state police and let them take care of it." And they all start driving away. You're like, how's this going to end now at this point, right? Of course, that's not the ending. We get to see this great little chase sequence where Michael's somehow been hanging on to the truck for a while somehow. I don't know how long he's been hanging on to the back of the truck. Or
he was watching Raiders of the Lost Ark and got the idea to just hang out underneath the truck. I'm convinced that's what really happened. He's just hanging underneath. I mean, of course, the ground probably hurt, but he's the boogeyman, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. He's got a lot of padding down. That jumpsuit's probably pretty well padded. But it does come up. He takes care of the few rednecks in the back in very fun and somewhat inventive ways. And then you get the whole sequence where one of the gnarliest kills in the whole film. He reaches his hand into the door and takes the jaw, just rips the jaw almost off. I was like, oh shit. And I don't know if you found this funny.
He's real he's real savage. And it's real fun. And it's really cool. And it's funny because I think that 2018 and kills especially up to the savagery of Michael.
Yeah.
But again, I think that a lot of that people forget. Like 4, 5, and 6 are pretty fucking brutal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we haven't really talked about those like actual kills in this one. Like we had like the guy in the beginning, he puts his thumb through the guy's head, like just crushes his skull. We even talk about Brady's heroic death, but Brady gets Rachel in the house. Brady gets Rachel and Jamie out. Like go upstairs and chase me. And he has this standoff with them, and he's trying his best. He's like punching them. It's doing nothing, and he like basically just crushes his skull.
It's the craziest kill in the franchise up to that point, like bar none.
And it's like, fucking shit.
It still might be one of my favorite franchise kills. Actually,
might be. I could see that totally. The jaw one works well for me too, though. I gotta say, it's like when he rips the jaw off. Now, the funny thing is, like, again, you watch. I think I mentioned this last week. Horror and humor are really kind of like in your brain. They're kind of like the same length. Like,
they live in the same world.
Do. So you laugh at some of these things, even though you're maybe not supposed to laugh at them per se. But after like he gets killed, and like Rachel has to take over. I just found it. I don't know why I found it so funny. She's like, well, ripped his jaw. Not going to help you. You're just getting the fuck out. Knocks the guy out of the moving car and trying to roll it away. I'm like, wow, dude, you just took that dude's car. Like, he might be okay. You might be able to help. No, you're done. Rachel goes off with the truck, and you have the sequence where Michael and her are going back and forth and trying to do it. Until, of course, they stop a little bit. Michael gets on the front, throws him off the hood, and it's so great to have a character who's like not going to wilt away. She's a final girl. She's like, I'm going to fucking take this. You son of a bitch. I don't know how she says son of a bitch. I don't know why it sticks in my head. Like, get this, you son of a bitch. Whenever it does it, and then she gets him, it's so good. And she knocks him the fuck out.
I'll say this, and this is not to be detrimental as like a comparison of but in as far as final girls go, I think she's almost a little better than Laurie in that capacity. Not to be rude in saying that Laurie's a great final girl, but we forget, and you and I talked about it while watching 1 and 2, she doesn't do as much damage or really fight back in those movies.
No,
it's not until H2O. Yeah. So really, to see Rachel kind of stepping up and being like, that's it, I'm finally doing something, was actually kind of satisfying.
Refreshing. Yeah, it was refreshing in a way. And it may be, I don't know, maybe it's the Sigourney Weaver Aliens Ripley kind of effect, possibly, to a degree. But yeah, it's one of the reasons I love Rachel. I think she's an underrated final girl for that reason. She's a real genuine character. She doesn't do anything super, but she does things that she can do, and she's not just a screaming flower. She's going to fight back. I mean, she's definitely scared. She's definitely frightened, and she does her own bits of screaming here and there, but she's going to step up and take care of business.
And she does. Yeah. And it's great. And it works. And I think that is why I think about it so frequently, is that, again, it was just kind of nice to see one of the final girls in this one in particular. Because the thing about the Friday movies is the final girl always stands up to Jason.
Yes, exactly. And Halloween made it a little bit different. So, and this is a different tack for Halloween, but it works. Of course, the best part about the film coming up, and one of the things I really loved about it, is Michael gets hit by the truck. The troopers all arrive, and Rachel tells Jamie, stay in the truck. And Jamie doesn't stay in the truck. She goes over to Michael, and she has a weird obsession in a way. It's kind of it does harken back to, which we'll talk about in the sequels bit, of the development of the character. There was a spoiler or a preview, or going to say there were drafts where there was a draft where the Jamie Lloyd-esque character was obsessed with Michael Myers and like thought he was a good guy, or not that he was good, but he thought he was misunderstood and wanted to like really connect with him. A little bit of that leaks into this script right here, because she kind of goes over and like touches his hand, and of course Michael wakes and she dives down and Mike gets shot to hell again. Like legitimately, if he wasn't killed, if he wasn't supernatural before, the fact that he gets to come back from this, he's definitely supernatural.
And he's freaking blown away. It's one of the most violent scenes ever in this series. Like Michael takes a hail of gunfire.
It's actually, I think it's the inspiration, don't get me wrong, for the Jason Goes to Hell.
I think so too, to be honest. If anyone's seen Jason Goes to Hell, you know exactly what we're talking about, because the opening of that movie is straight up this, except they pulverized his body. It's one of the wildest sequences I've ever seen. Over the top,
like it's a comedic effect in a way. This was not done comically. This is just fucking badass. But after it's done, the funny thing is though about it is that with all these kills and all Michael Myers' return and everything else, they don't find a body, but they still seem satisfied. Even like Loomis, this is the part where annoyed is a strong word, because again, you understand. But Loomis kind of going, "Yep, he's gone to hell now." Loomis wouldn't accept it without seeing the body. That's just what they got to me.
I think in the 10 years of time, something happened to Loomis that clearly made him dumber in some capacity. I don't know what it is, but he just made choices.
Yeah, it's strange. But they go back to Jamie and Rachel's house. They see the parents there, and her stepmother or her foster mother or whatever take her upstairs to get her cleaned up. And we forgot to talk about, like, it's kind of important here, is the costume that Jamie does buy.
I was waiting.
The clown. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up to this. So the one thing that I really appreciate about the whole movie, and it leads to this moment, and this is part of why Halloween 4 is so great.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of ties to what you were just talking about. So throughout the movie, as we saw, these two characters are connected. When you get to the end of the movie and you realize what's going on, and you realize that that Jamie is wearing the same costume that Michael was wearing at the beginning of the first movie, and then she has that moment with him where she touches his hand, and that connection is still very alive. We lead to this moment that Jamie snaps and goes and attacks someone.
Yes.
And goes full Michael at the end of the film.
It's a great callback. Such a great callback. To have the mask goes down just like the first one. You're kind of like, what the hell is going on? What? And she, sure enough, just like the first one. I mean, it's part of that psychic connection as well. That's the psychic connection actually finally pushed all the way through. Maybe Michael's death really made her to snap or whatever. But it's my favorite Loomis of the whole time.
Bar none. She
appeared at the top of the stairs, and Loomis is like, no! Like Emperor Palpatine style, no.
Yeah, he goes nuts. And he pulls a gun.
On her, yes. No. And you could feel it, though. You feel, because he's so good at what he does, you feel the intensity of 10 years, and he finally thought he was done with the evil. And sure enough,
now it's returned.
It's starting. Not only is it returned, it's starting all over again.
Yep.
And Jamie,
and you know that this just broke the fandom when it came out, because
what a ballsy ending.
You did the return of Michael Myers just to kill him at the end and have the girl take the mantle. What?
What a ball! The girl you've been rooting for the entire time. Granted, horror fans, we always root for the Michael Myers characters as well. We do,
yeah, of course.
But generally, the hero of the story. I mean, you can say Rachel is, you can say Loomis is, but the girl that is the bait, the MacGuffin, she's the one that's standing up to Michael or trying to be saved from Michael. she's the innocent girl that representing innocence, representing good, and you turn and make her be like evil at the end. It's like, holy shit, what a ballsy move. I loved this movie. It's one of the reasons I love this one so much, is that it had the balls to do something, an ending like that. That's perfect. It was just
it's
beautiful,
so good.
spot on.
It's really, really well done. I'm such a fan of them doing that, and I just think it works so well. God, dude, what an ending. And it's seared in my mind, and it continues to be to this day, because I always see that shot of her at the top of the stairs holding the scissors, the blood dripping
Really
down the
heavy.
scissors. But yeah. And just, again, I have it like seared in my brain. The shots of Loomis as he's screaming, the shot of the gun coming out, the shot of the sheriff stopping him.
What the fucking guy? But then going, what the fuck? At the same time, everybody comes upstairs and everything else. And like just at the end, you see her again, and she just breathes like Michael Myers. You're like, oh fuck, man, this is beautiful horror storytelling, and this is an 88-minute long movie. Moves so crisply, so fantastically. The pacing is spot on. There's a lot to love about this film.
There really is. Again, I can make fun of it all the time, but it's because I really enjoy it. And so there's a little fun to be had at its expense, sure, but it's actually a really good movie.
It really is. It is exactly what it intended to do. It set out to be a callback / like a rebirth of Michael Myers film. It honors the first one. It does a little bit of new things to it as well. So it moves the story along. It's that perfect mix of familiarity, new, and just done very overall competently. I love it.
Yeah, man. I love it too. It's just so good. And what a fucking fun time. And like, what such a good return for a franchise that looked like it was pretty much on the ropes. Like, we hadn't seen Michael since 81. This has been 7 years since we had seen that character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it really lands and it really works. And in a world where Friday the 13th had really like taken over the landscape, for Michael to come back and really like, well, take a stab at cinema.
Yeah.
Right.
Friday and Nightmare are really both. Like, Colin was third place at that point, definitively.
Not just third place, just dead.
Yeah, dead.
It was just dead in the water. And it came back in a really interesting, strong way that it's super fun. It's really memorable. There's some fun just to have with it. Even if it's nonsensical, I can't help but smile while I'm watching it. It just works, man. It just works.
It's so hard for me. Like, I love this film as a standalone Halloween movie. Like this, like I said, it's one of my favorites. It is within my favorite sequel at this point. And maybe I'll change as I rewatch it again. But as of last watching, this was my favorite sequel. And it's hard to not think about how much 5 ruins what 4 set up. And that's why I think that's why I get so angry and hate what 5 did.
That's not the only reason I don't like 5, but we'll get
it's not. But to be honest with you, the funny thing is, like, 6 is not a great movie either. But at least 6 was like a standalone, like it did its own thing, and like, okay, it's just not a great movie. 5 like was not a great movie, and it bastardized some great stuff that happened in 4. So
right,
I try to slash that off and go, fuck you 5, and I want to watch 4, and this is my second favorite Michael Myers. So Halloween 4 is a great film. It's time to rank it. It's time to rank it amongst these franchises now. I'll say it again. I'll give the scores out. We always go from 1 to 11 because PLD Brothers, we always turn it up to 11 here. We both ranked Halloween, the first one, at 11. You ranked Halloween 2 at 6. I ranked it at 5. You ranked Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, at 9.5. And I ranked Season of the Witch at 8 out of 11. So, my friend, where are you ranking Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers?
I'm giving it an 8. I love the kills. I love the stuff with Jamie. I love so much of what it's doing. The ending is so powerful and so iconic. It still sticks in my mind. So it's hard for me not to love that in particular. I think I'm going 8.
8? It's a solid score, but you do like it less than Season of the Witch.
I like it differently, though, than Season of the Witch.
Okay.
And it's not nearly as good as, say, the first one. And it's not even nearly as good, I think, as, say, Kills. So there's a curve here. I don't think any of the movies match the original.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm going to stick with 8.
Okay.
Now that could change as we go along, but an 8 seems like it's at this point it's the most solid Michael Myers sequel.
Okay, fair point. I'm going to say that I will fully admit, nostalgia has probably bumped this up at least half a point for me, at least. So I prefer nostalgia's sake, as this is my first film. I'm giving it a 10.
I had a feeling you would.
Give it a 10. Like I would think 9.5, but I can't argue. Like every time I watch it, I just smile the entire time the movie's on. Like I'm just engaged the entire time. Like I love it. Almost love it because of the flaws. Like the flaws make you smile. It's kind of like the stormtrooper hitting the head in Star Wars. It's like I think I love and laugh along with it. But I love the ambition of what they're trying to do. I love what they succeed in doing. I like the characters. I like the feel. I love the ending. The endings might be my favorite ending. Okay, maybe the first one still is the best ending still overall. But this is an ending that rivaled that for me. I loved how this one ended. So yeah, I can't say against it. It's gonna be a 10.
Yeah, no, man. Look, I'm not no shame. 10's a super solid score. I can't bash you for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And nostalgia will play a factor in one of the other movies that we're going to talk about, probably for me, in a very similar regard. So,
and if you follow us on Twitter, you know we have a war about it recently, so you know which film he's talking about. A joke war.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We did have a joke war going on. It's fine. It's fine. And I get it. The funny thing is, well, it was a joke because we both actually love these films. Like you love this one, and I do love H2O. I just happen to, it is what it is. That's what we love about this franchise. There's so many good parts to it. Some wonky parts.
Much more than some people want to give it credit for.
Agreed. And I'm definitely not saying there's not a wonkiness because we're gonna hit some wonky, and we're gonna hit some wonky very soon.
Real fast.
I would actually say that 3 of the next 4 films are not on the good side of not going to be coming close to that 10 anytime soon for me. I'll tell you that much. Most likely.
I just realized so much of what's coming up, and I just want to scream.
We do have the great one coming up. There's one great one coming up. But yeah. We also are going to have some guests coming up, though, too. So that might make things interesting.
That's true.
First time we're going to have more than 2 mediocre white dudes. One of our films is going to have 3 mediocre white dudes. One of our films is going to be 2 mediocre white dudes, and I can't say she's not. I can't say she's mediocre. So,
or a dude,
or a dude. That's true.
Dudette, sure.
Dudette. Yeah, I'm sure you do that. So, but we got some guests coming up, so hopefully that'll be our first attempt to have guests on this podcast. We'll see how that goes.
How about this? 2 guys, a girl. And a butcher knife.
Okay. All right. How about that? Or maybe 2 guys, a girl, and Paul Rudd.
It's also fair. I'm just thinking out loud on the, 2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place thing. I'm really throwing down this real old school reference to a sitcom that I'm still not sure how it existed for 4 seasons, but it did.
With a name like that, it still existed for 4 seasons, but oh well. Well, folks, that is going to do it. We got a little bit of plugging to do. I will say, I talked about it earlier. Join the Patreon, patreon.com/PLD projects, where you can join patrons like Danielle Ramirez, Brandon Buckingham, Brandy Parker, Jeff Alterman, John Lastrina, Kelly W., and more. And you get to see extra content like me and PJ talk 2 mediocre white idiots in a box, our Doctor Who show. Or our new show where we're going to expand on Halloween even more, talking about the potential sequels. First show will be free. It'll be a teaser for you. It'll be on Sunday night, probably either 10:30 or 11 Eastern. We haven't quite determined it yet, so stay tuned. Talking about the sequels that could have been for Halloween 4. That didn't happen. But that's all coming up as well. It's a lot of good, fun content for that. Also, you can find on PLD Projects, we do have the Crown Jewels podcast, which will return next week. I'm sorry I couldn't get one out this week. life was too. I didn't want to take 2 weeks off in a row, but you know what? Shit happens sometimes, folks. I apologize. We're going to get back into the Queen arc soon. You just watched Class Action yesterday. It was Tuesday, where you heard myself, Richard Jarvie, and Maddie Gunner talk about Comic-Con instead of having our usual X versus Y type of show. But yeah, and you can also find us, me on Action Industries. You can find me writing for Movie Trivia Schmodown with this guy over here. The Spectacular is coming, and it's going to be spectacular. We are writing. We're going to write the best spectacular possible. We got the matches in place. We're going to be good. I can't wait for that, to be honest with you. How about you?
I'm still not ready to say goodbye just yet. It feels weird.
I'm not either. It's a sad thing. I try to make it positive, try to make triumphant about it.
I'm aware of that. It's not a dig at you. It's just
I know.
Anyway, yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram, PJ_Campbell. You can find me hanging out with this guy, talking all sorts of movies, but I'm also getting ready to relaunch PJCN over on Instagram, or not Instagram, on YouTube and on most places you can find podcasts. I'm going to be working on a Patreon soon because I could really use your guys' help to, stay afloat. I'm going to be doing very similar to what I'm doing here with PLD, but I'm going to be going through the MCU with Chance Ellison. And, well, there might be some people like, I don't know, one Mr. Januzo who wants to come over and hang out and talk some MCU stuff. So we're going to be diving into the MCU of it all, kind of taking a look back at Marvel over the course of the last 30 years in film. It should be kind of fun and felt a little different. We're doing horror on one end. Why not jump into the superhero side on the other?
Absolutely. I'm all for that. I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for that project. The PJCN is a great network. A lot of great people working with it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, and you can also find me at _Denuzio on Twitter. I did forget to throw that out there. I guess that'll do it for us this week, man. Next week.
Yeah, that was quick.
It was. I'm surprised this one was quicker as it is, considering how much we love it. But next week is a movie we are not very fond of, Halloween 5, The Revenge
of Michael Myers.
I don't really get, but we'll get there. Sometimes it's fun to hear a trashy movie, huh? Sometimes, but...
Yeah. There's things to be said about this movie. Not my favorite. I want you guys to be aware of what you're getting into. It's not the best.
No, I will say I think I probably would have liked it a lot more if it was a standalone and not a continuation from 4.
I feel that way about a few of these movies, to be honest with you.
There you go. Fair enough.
There's not a lot. We could just keep saying it, or we could just say good night, good luck, and Godspeed watching Halloween 5. We'll see you guys next week.
Wish us well. Until then, stay mediocre.
Stay mediocre.
Bye now.